Well, now that you're here now, 2024, you're in a place of reflection. You talk about looking back at your discography. What is it like? I mean, you're still a performing artist too. So every day you perform these songs, you're reliving that time when we're in the room when you wrote these songs. So from a point of reflection, what's it like reliving your songs over and over again as a performing artist?
I think when you take a song like, let's just go back to like Backroads, which is probably the most well-known song that I've put out there. That song was a song that I didn't think anybody would understand because I was talking about growing up in Northeast Texas and riding these back roads, and I thought that we were the only rednecks out there who really did this.
Right.
Lo and behold, Walt, said we're putting that song on this record, and when we did, we weren't in the Apple um, phones. We did, at that time we I think we were still using flip phones,
Probably.
but the way that after that song was put out, we were getting email from all over the world about different ways that they rode back roads and got away, and how much that song meant to them. I had people that were in Iraq and Afghanistan, or men and women of uniform, who would send me videos of them in a tank going into a battle listening to that song. And so um, I think you always reflect upon those things, how, what they meant to you. That doesn't mean that you would write the same thing today either,
Right.
25 years down the road. I don't write about the same subject matter that I wrote about back then, but you think about freeze frame time.
So
Um, my 18-year-old is he's grown. He's a freshman in college, and I wrote this song for him, and I still love to sing that song every single night.
yep. And it's a huge hit of yours too. I mean, just huge. Everybody knows that song in Texas, man. And
If you
it's
get lucky in your writing life, if you get lucky to write a few songs that appeal to people from the smallest to the oldest, people of all ages, that song resonates with them, and that is the most beautiful part of it.
absolutely love. I love interviewing folks because I have an outline. That's why I keep looking over here for those that are watching. But the questions are they it's this is magic. Your answers are just leading me into my next question on my outline. And so we're talking about subject matter now. That's actually my next question. Now, relevant subject matter, in my opinion, has always been a mainstay of your music. I mean, you go record after record after record. And your songs just resonate with people across a really broad demographic, like you were just saying. And whether it's love, loss, pain, hurt, sadness, joy, you have so many different real world emotions within your songs, and that's why you resonate so broadly, I think. But how do your personal experiences feed your writing versus maybe, writing from someone else's perspective?
So I've always enjoyed writing solo, writing by myself, and I've written a majority of my songs that are put out on these records. I've done myself, but there's quite a few co-writes in there as well. It's a much different beast to approach the co-write than it is the individual write. It's also a much different time frame from when I was younger in my 20s to where I'm at now at 50. I think when I was younger, I was able to write from a place of just you don't have a broad windshield to be able to look through. All these things that are happening to you are kind of here, and so it makes it easier to be able to write about, in my opinion. I was always one that loved to write from the inspiration. I loved it when a song idea would pop into my head, or a line, and I could just sit down right at that moment and put that down on paper. And a lot of those songs that we talked about already, like Freeze Frame or a Backroads, and there's a lot more than that. But those songs happened quickly. Those songs fell on paper. Those songs always turn out to be the best songs. I don't care who you are, what your career looks like. There are songs that you wrote in a very quick manner that are the hits, and they just come from a place in the soul and deep down. that people can feel that and they can hear that when you sing that. And so I think that is, a great part of being able to write solo. And then when you write with other people, you're coming into a time frame. You're coming into a set date to be able to say, hey, we're going to sit down at 2 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon and we're going to write a song.
Hmm.
And when you get there, you start opening up your notebook, your computer, your phone, and saying, hey, I have this idea and I have this idea. And then you start working and collaborating together to make that music come together. Man, I've had some great songs like that, happen for sure. There's no doubt. To be able to write early in my career with people like, Walt Wilkins and, uh, the Travis Meadows. I wrote with him when I was
Ooh.
younger. We wrote, obviously have that relationship in the past with Lori McKenna, John Randall. There's so many, Keith Gaddis.
Liz Rose.
Yeah, Liz, Rose, and we've written a few songs together as well. And so, it was eye opening, and it was a lot of flying back and forth in Asheville and doing a lot of co-writes up there is what it
Yeah.
was. It was a special time for me. I enjoyed all the trips that I went to Nashville and wrote with those great, great artists who are still, I mean, golly, those were, I feel like all of those names should be household names,
I
right?
agree.
Rodney's in there as well, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Now, to a
yeah,
songwriting nerd, they are household names. I just want you to know that for me, like, but you're right. Like, the way it was put to me is kind of like the Wizard of Oz, the people behind the curtain.
yeah,
They don't get a lot of notoriety, and I agree they should be. And uh, that's why I'm here. I love talking to songwriters and trying to get their stories out there. The concept of co-writing was put to me by a songwriter who won a Grammy, so I take it at his word. Is the more regimented the process is, for writing songs, whether it's scheduled, whether it's for a certain artist that you're writing for. Like if you go into the room and you know that you're scheduled for 1 p.m. and you're supposed to be writing a song for Dolly Parton, the more regimented that situation is, the more the song fights you back. That's the way it was
yeah.
put to me by a Grammy winner. And do you feel that's the case?
I do, I do. I feel like there's a lot more roadblocks that you have to overcome instead of just organically allowing it to fall into place.
Yeah.
And again, that's part of the strife that there is when you do write with someone else. But the times when that works out, when it does come together, when you do get that really good song out of those trials, then it makes it worth it. And that's why people do it
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't, if you stepped into a room with someone and expected to write a song every time, you're in the wrong business because it just doesn't happen that way.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, coming into a songwriting session, if you're scheduled to write with someone else, it's a frame of mind. You don't know what that person has gone through that morning or what they went through on the way when they were driving there. That's a part of it too. So um, it was always a challenge, and sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't.
That's right. And I feel like that's a major pro to co-writing is not only what you're talking about, but like if you've got two minds in there at once, it's almost like a validation thing too. Because then you'll know if you suck or not, right? Because if the other person's just like, "Nah, I'm not really feeling that, Brandon," like you might back off from that, right?
Yeah,
Or maybe even double down on your ideas.
yeah. I think you have to double down sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're writing songs and you get stuck on the fourth verse, the third line, and you're like, we're so close. We've got all of these verses and the chorus is nailed, and we're sitting here arguing or discussing the last two lines, and I think it's to go this way, and he thinks it's to go this way, and you just have to come to an agreement to either disagree or stick to your guns and dig your heels in and say, no, I feel like it needs to be like this. And a lot of times, people are understanding other writers. Like, yeah, I get that. I mean, I can see it from your perspective, and it probably fits you better from that perspective.
Mhm.
So, um, you can't always say, like I'm an old songwriter. I've been writing songs for 25 years. I should know better than someone who's been writing songs for 5 years. But I don't feel like that's necessarily the case either. I feel
Right.
like, you know, the ideas are flowing in young people and through young people. And so, you know, I take those opportunities when I get them.
I think all of that is part of the learning process too, right? Like you have to be willing to always learn because, like, once you shut off that process, you're just an old dog, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I feel like it's one of the most important aspects that gets missed is that we always must continue to cultivate and
I agree.
grow.
Yep.
And if we don't, then we get stuck in ourselves. We get stuck in these old ways, and we're not willing to take those gambles and those chances that we once were. Um, there's a lot of flip sides to that, but and that's another thing. I just have always felt. I talk to my mother and my father about every Monday. We tend to get on the phone on Monday mornings and talk, and um, both of them still later in life are always working on something. They always have a project. My dad's usually out in the shop rebuilding something or reworking something or creating something. My mom's in her painting shop and she's learning new techniques, painting techniques. And these brothers, they're in their 70s and they're always talking about growing and learning. And I think that's so great to hear at 50. Like life it continues to grow. You continue to learn, you continue to invest, and you continue to reap the benefits of that.
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
I agree, and I think music is so backwards from everything else in life, and I'll explain. When we're successful as human beings, no matter what it is, we always try to replicate that success by essentially rinse and repeat, right? So, like, if we go into a car, we know what works to take an engine out. So, it was successful the first time, so we just do it the same way the second time, and we have success again. Music is not that way. You can't write the same song over and over again and be successful with that same song. So I feel like learning is such a much more of a bigger process in music because you have to figure out what you learned and then write something different and still try to be successful. It's so different than regular success, I feel.
Again, a lot changes, right? The things that meant something to you 10 years ago don't mean the same thing
Right.
anymore.
Yeah.
And you have new things that you believe in, a new direction that you've gone. And your circle, probably has gotten a little bit smaller with the people that you really truly associate with and want to be around. And so, life in every way, through every decade that we are alive, changes significantly. And, while on one hand, we're just here along for the ride, on the other hand, we're here to grow and learn and to be a part of that change as well. And man, I hate it when people, and I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes I can get stagnant.
Mm.
Sometimes I can get caught up in my ways and not thinking about it. Like